wardrobes.
What we do in them, or what?
No, not what you do in them. Now, you've brought with you some clothes because we're going to be looking at glam rock.
Imagine having it all. The fame, the fortune, the fans screaming your name, only to lose everything in the end. Brian Connolly, the golden voice of the sweet, once ruled the world of glam rock with electrifying hits like Ballroom Blitz and Fox on the Run. But behind the lights and glitter was a secret he kept hidden for years. In his final days, before death took him too soon, Brian finally revealed the painful truth about the sweet, the band, the fame, and the betrayal that tore it all apart. This is the story the world was never meant to hear. Brian Connolly's life began far from the glamour of rock and roll. He was born in Hamilton, South Lanarkshire, in 1945, into a world that offered him nothing but uncertainty. His mother, Frances Connolly, was just a teenager working as a waitress when she gave birth to him. Unable to care for a child, she left him in a Glasgow hospital, and no one ever found out who his real father was. When Brian was only 2 years old, he was fostered by a kind couple, Jim and Helen McManus, who lived in Blantyre. They raised him as their own and gave him their family name, McManus. For years, he believed he was Brian McManus, never knowing the truth about where he had come from. When he turned 18, that truth finally surfaced. He was told that he had been adopted. The news shattered his sense of identity. Everything he had believed about himself, his name, his family, his roots, was suddenly uncertain. To reclaim a part of who he was, he decided to take back his birth name, Connolly, in honor of the mother he never truly knew. That discovery began a lifelong journey of self-discovery and longing, a search for belonging that would echo through every song he ever sang. In his youth, Brian dreamed of becoming an engineer. He studied the trade and imagined a simple, stable life. But destiny had a louder plan. His charm, his presence, and above all, his voice caught the attention of local musicians. Music was where he truly belonged, even if he didn't know it yet. His musical journey began when he joined a band called Wainwright's Gentlemen, performing around Hayes, Harrow, and Wembley. The group was already known in the London circuit and even appeared in competitions broadcast on BBC One. Brian's smooth vocals quickly made him stand out, and it wasn't long before he became the band's frontman. Among his bandmates was drummer Mick Tucker, who would later become his closest friend and collaborator. The two shared a dream of creating something bigger, something that would take them beyond local clubs and into rock history. In 1968, Brian and Mick decided to start fresh. They formed a new group called the Sweet Shop, bringing in Steve Priest on bass and Frank Torpey on guitar. They made their live debut at the Hemel Hempstead Pavilion on March 9, 1968. The name Sweet Shop didn't last long. After a dispute with another band, they shortened it to The Sweet. It was simple, catchy, and unforgettable. But their early singles went unnoticed, and their first few years were filled with disappointments. Guitarist Frank Torpey left the band, but Brian and Mick refused to give up. Their belief in themselves kept them alive during the hardest times. Their breakthrough came when they met producers and songwriters Nicky Chinn and Mike Chapman, along with producer Phil Wainman. Chinn and Chapman had a talent for creating pop hits, and the Sweet had the voice and charisma to bring those songs to life. Together, they recorded Funny Funny, which became their first major hit in 1971. It was followed by Coco and Little Willie, songs that climbed the charts and turned the band into international stars. By 1972, the Sweet were appearing on hit shows like Top of the Pops, dazzling audiences with their glitter, glam, and outrageous style. Behind the glittering lights and wild costumes, a storm was brewing within the Sweet. The band had grown tired of being labeled as a pop act. They wanted to evolve, to be seen as true rock musicians, powerful, raw, and authentic. But their producers, Nicky Chinn and Mike Chapman, insisted on catchy, radio-friendly tunes that sold millions but didn't reflect who they really were. Refusing to be boxed in, the band began writing their own heavier tracks for the B-sides of their singles, songs with grit, attitude, and soul. Their live performances became louder, more chaotic, and undeniably electric. Then came the infamous night in 1973 in Killarney, when chaos broke loose. Bottles flew through the air as the crowd turned hostile, forcing the band to fight through the madness on stage. Out of that unforgettable night came one of their greatest hits, the Ballroom Blitz, a song that captured the frenzy, danger, and unstoppable energy of that moment. It became an anthem that defined their defiance. By 1974, the band dropped the E and rebranded themselves as simply Sweet, a symbolic move toward independence. They poured everything into their hard rock masterpiece, Sweet Fanny Adams, an album that showcased their real talent, heavier riffs, aggressive lyrics, and raw emotion. But during the recording, tragedy struck. Brian Connolly was brutally attacked in Staines, suffering throat injuries that would change his life forever. His once mighty voice was never the same, yet he refused to give up, singing through pain and weakness to finish the album. Years later, in 1978, Sweet was touring the United States alongside legends like Bob Seger and Alice Cooper, but Brian's health and drinking had spiraled. During a show in Birmingham, Alabama, he collapsed on stage. That night ended an era, the fall of a man who once defined the sound of glam rock. By the mid-1980s, his personal life began to fall apart. His marriage to Marilyn Connolly ended in divorce, and he was left to rebuild once again. Yet his resilience never faded. He continued performing, even when he could barely walk or sing without pain. In 1988, there was a brief reunion of the original lineup: Brian, Mick Tucker, Andy Scott, and Steve Priest in Los Angeles. But Brian's voice was too damaged to continue. Later, he found peace performing in smaller venues, sometimes under the name Brian Connolly's Sweet. He even made appearances in places like Dubai and Bahrain, playing for devoted fans who had followed him for decades. In 1995, Brian made one final attempt at a comeback with his album Let's Go. That same year, his partner Gene gave birth to their son, Brian Jr. For the first time in years, he found joy again. Gene helped him reconnect with his biological family, discovering that he had a brother and sister still alive in Canada, and that his mother had passed away years earlier. Meeting his family gave him a sense of closure, something he had searched for his entire life. But his health continued to decline. He had suffered multiple heart attacks, leaving him partially paralyzed, and his body was slowly failing. Yet, he continued to perform at small venues like Butlin's holiday camps, holding on to the one thing that had always defined him: his music. In 1996, the network Channel 4 aired a documentary titled Don't Leave Me This Way, a heartbreaking look at Brian's life and decline. Viewers saw a frail man, shaking, walking with a limp, yet still singing with every ounce of strength he had left. A few weeks later, on December 5, 1996, he gave his final live performance at the Bristol Hippodrome, alongside Slade 2 and the Glitter Band Experience. No one knew it would be his last show. Behind the cheers and applause, his heart was failing, but he refused to stop. 2 months later, in February 1997, Brian Connolly passed away at the age of 51. The cause was kidney and liver failure, along with repeated heart attacks. His funeral was held at the Most Holy Name Roman Catholic Church in Denham, Buckinghamshire, where his daughters scattered his ashes over water. He left behind his partner Jean and their young son, Brian Jr. A memorial concert was later held at Camden Palace, where fans celebrated his life and music, ensuring that his name would never be forgotten. By the end, the man who had once filled arenas was living in a small council flat, performing modest gigs just to get by. But even with nothing left, his legacy endured. He was the golden voice of glam rock, the heartbeat of the sweet, and a symbol of undying determination. His songs still echo through time, proof that real legends never fade, even when the spotlight does. Brian Connolly's life is a reminder that fame can lift you to the heavens and drop you just as fast. But no matter how far he fell, he never stopped giving his heart to music. He was a fighter, a dreamer, and above all, an artist who refused to be forgotten. So, the next time you hear the opening lines of Ballroom Blitz, are you ready, Steve? Andy? Mick? All right, fellas, let's go! Remember the man behind that voice, because even when the music stopped, Brian Connolly never truly left the stage. Thanks for watching.